Hi everyone, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful yellow and black top inspired by the red and this other inspiration on the side. So in today's video we're going to be drafting the pattern for this top, and in my next tutorial I'll be sharing with you guys how to join all the pieces together. So if this video is something you're interested in, I'll say keep on watching. If you're still yet to subscribe, hit on the subscribe button and let's get started. So guys, these are the fabrics I'm going to be using to make this blouse. As you must have seen in the beginning of the tutorial, for you to be able to make this you need about 2 yards or 2.5 yards of fabric, but this also depends on your size. If you're a very big person, I would advise that you have about 3 yards. It's better for your fabric to be left than for it not to be enough, and of course you will need a matching lining piece. Now to draft out the front pattern, I have my pattern paper here. It's folded into two. Now the first thing we're going to be doing from the center front is drawing out our zipper allowance line, and from the center of my fabric here I'm just going in by 1 inch. I'm going to use this 1 inch point I'm getting to just draw a straight line across to serve as my zipper allowance in front. Remember that we have a zipper in front of this blouse. Next I'm going to be drawing another straight line across the top. This is my starting line, or you can call it the shoulder line, so I'll label SL shoulder line. Okay, so now we'll start taking our body measurements from this shoulder line. So from the shoulder I measure down to my bust point, which is 10 inches. I marked my underbust at 13 inches, and for my waist normally is 16 inches, but for the purpose of this particular tutorial add 1 inch to your waist. So instead of marking it as 16 inches, I marked it as 17, and I'm just going to draw straight line across these points, but I'll be starting from the line I drew across earlier. So I'll go ahead and label this the bust line, this is the underbust line, and then this is the waistline. So once you're through with this, now you're going to add your body measurements, and I'm going to be taking all my measurements from the black straight line I drew earlier. So for the neck width, I'm coming in by 3 inches, and I'm going to connect this neck all the way to the underbust, because that's what this dress is. The neck goes all the way to the underbust. So from these 3 inches that I went in by, I'm going to draw a straight line all the way to the underbust line. So just do it exactly as you see me doing it in this video. Now from the zipper allowance line again, I'm marking half of my shoulder measurement. I just made a point there and I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll connect from the points to the top of my neckline. So now once you're through with this, the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is to work on the armhole. So from the shoulder slope, I'm coming down by my armhole depth, which is 7 inches. I'll mark it here, and I'm going to be drawing a line from that point towards the side. You can draw this line all the way across if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to be using my pen now to just connect from this line a straight line to meet the top of my shoulder slope. So now I am going to use my tape to get the midpoint of this line that I just drew out. So I'm using my tape to divide it. I'll just create a point here at the midpoint, and from this midpoint I'm going to be going in by half of an inch like this. So on this chest line, this is actually the chest line, this new line here, like I said, you can draw it all the way across if you want to. So I'm dividing my bust measurement by 4 and I'm making a point here. So I'll be connecting these 3 points together to give me my armhole. So just make sure to arrange your curve very properly, and if you don't have a curve, you can go ahead and use your free hand for this. So now I'm done drafting out the armhole curve. Now I'm going to add my body measurements to the other lines. Okay, so on this bust line, of course you'll be marking your bust measurement divided by 4. Make sure to take all your measurements from the zipper allowance line, okay, not from the end of the paper. Now I just made the point here, my bust measurement divided by 4. And then I'm going to come down to the waistline here. On the waistline, I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4, and I'm going to be making a mark here. But I'll be adding an extra 1 inch to this waist measurement for my dart. So I'm adding 1 inch from that point. So I'm going to go ahead and connect all the last points together using my ruler. So guys, I'm done marking out the side. Now the next thing I want to do is to create the curve that you see in front. So from my waistline, I'm coming down by 5 inches. You can come down by 4 inches if you don't want it to be too curvy. Now I'm going to be using my armhole curve to just connect the 2 points. If you want yours to be V-shaped, you can use your straight ruler to connect these 2 points. Mine had a little bit of curve and I wanted it like this. Okay, now on this underbust line, I'm going to extend the line outside of the zipper allowance and do the same thing on the end of the blouse. So this is going to be my zipper allowance here. So basically we are done drafting out the front pattern. This is basically all for the front pattern. I'll be adding my stitching allowance when we start cutting on fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and cut through the underbust line like this. So go ahead and do the same thing, and then I'll continue to cut the other part of the body, that's the cup area and every other part, after cutting it out through the underbust line. So guys, I'm done cutting it out. Remember that this area here that I have labeled zipper is going to be going in. This is our zipper allowance, and this under part is the corset part. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and mark my dart. Remember, I've not marked my dart here. So this line is the waistline. So from the center of my zipper allowance line, I came in by half of my nipple to nipple measurement. Okay, so I'm going to go out on both sides of this point I just created by half of an inch. And from this half of an inch point, I'm going to go all the way up to the ends of the pattern paper. I'm just going to draw straight lines across this point, like you see me doing like this. And I'm just going to be using the paper from one line to cover up to the other line, just like you see me doing like this. So just go ahead and do the same thing. This way we are taking off the dart and we're taking it off straight. It's going in a straight line. So now I'm just going to go ahead and tape it down so that it doesn't move away. And then this area here that is short, I'm going to need to replace it back. So I'll just cut another piece of pattern paper and just place it under. I'm going to be taping it down as well, just like I'm doing like this. Go ahead and do the same thing because you will notice the same shortage. Okay, so now I'm going to use my armhole curve to just connect the curve back like I'm doing like this, and then I will go ahead and cut off the excess. So now for this upper part, I'm just going to measure everything I have here and just divide it into 2 equal halves with my tape. I'll just make a mark here, and I'll do the same thing on the shoulder. I'll just divide what I have on the shoulder into 2 equal halves and make a mark. I'm going to be joining these 2 marks together with a straight line. Now we're going to go ahead and cut through this line, but before then I want to just make arrows to show me the upper part of this, just like this. This is the corset part. Okay, so I'm going to cut through this pattern paper now, the upper part. I'm just going to cut through until I get to about 1/4 inch away from the end of the paper so that we can spread it and just open it up to make it a little bit wider on another piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in another piece of paper. I'm going to be spreading this out on it. So guys, I went ahead to measure how wide my spread is from one leg to another of the pattern paper, and it is 2.5 inches. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and cut along the ends of the first pattern paper, just like I'm doing like this. It's best for you guys to pin this down before you start cutting, but I didn't have any of my pins around, so I decided to start holding it in place as I went along. Please pin it down as you cut, it will be easier for you. So guys, now I'm done cutting it out. So this upper part is the cup. Just label it cup, and it's going in this direction like this. I'm going to be pleating it a little bit to fit into the bustier area. Now for the back, I've gone ahead to draw out a starting line, which is the shoulder line. Now from the shoulder line, I'm coming down to my bust line, and also I'm coming down to the waist. Remember, we are using 17 inches instead of my normal 16 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and draw straight lines across this new point I just created, just like I'm doing like this. Note that there is no zipper allowance at the back because the zipper is going to be in front. So from the shoulder, I came in by 3 inches for my neck width, and I'm coming down by 1.5 inch for my neck depth. I'm just going to connect these 2 points together to give me a small round neckline. So now from the center back, I'm going to go in by half of my shoulder measurement on the shoulder line. I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch from this point for my shoulder slope, and I'm going to be connecting it into the neckline. Everything I'm going to be doing here is the same thing I've done on the front pattern when I was trying to get the armhole. So guys, after drafting out the armhole, I decided to extend this chest line into the center back like this. So this is the chest line, this is the bust line, and remember that the last one is the waistline. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to, from this chest line, go in by half of my nipple to nipple measurement, do the same thing on the bust line, and also do the same thing on the waistline. I'm going to be connecting all these 3 points with my straight ruler so that I can go ahead and get my dart. So now on both sides of this line, on the waistline, I'm going to be going out by ½ inch and ½ inch here. Now you can decide to connect this all the way to the top of the chest line, or you can come down by 1 inch, which is what I did. Okay, so from this chest line I came down by 1 inch. So now I'm going to be connecting my dart to the 1 inch point I came down by, so just like I'm doing like this, and I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. Now once you're through with this, the next thing you're going to do is to add your body measurements to the sides. Now the back pattern is not going to be having the curve that we had in front, so I'll just go ahead and join the sides together after taking in my body measurements. So once you're done with this, just go ahead and cut out the back piece. So this is the back, and then these are the front patterns that we cut out earlier. Now let's go ahead and work on the sleeves. So guys, for the sleeve I already drafted out a basic long sleeve pattern. I'm going to be linking a tutorial I have on this up in the description box for you guys to check in case you do not know how to go about this. So now this sleeve is going to be having a band. What I want to do is from the end of the sleeve I came up by 2½ inches, and I'm just going to draw a straight line across, and I'll label this the band, and I'm going to be cutting out the band out of the full sleeve so that I will now be able to slash and spread the upper part to give me the puff sleeve. Okay, so now guys, on this end I'm going to just use my tape to separate the end. You can do 1 inch difference or you can do 1½ inch difference. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to use this point to draw straight lines all the way to the top of the sleeve like I'm doing here. I labeled it 1, 2 and 3, and I'm going to be cutting through the lines. I'll cut it all the way to the top, but I will not be cutting it entirely off. I'll just leave it about 1/4 inch away from the end, just like I've done here, so you'll be able to spread out the sleeve. So I'm going to be placing this on my fabric to cut it out. So this is the fabric I'm using. As you can see, I am going to be folding this fabric into 4 because I want to cut the front and the back together. So what I have here is a folding 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this is all the fabric I had left after cutting out the bodies. So I'll just turn it over and just spread out my pattern paper on it, just as much as I am able to get. Okay, so you can actually measure this. You can give it 4 inch distance from each leg, or you can just do it the way I did. Make use of the amount of fabric that you have. Just make sure you are spreading the legs out. Go ahead and pin it down, and then you're going to go ahead and cut around. So from the top I am going to cut away from the pattern paper. On the ends I will do the same thing as well, about ½ inch away, and do the same thing on the side. So this is going to be my sleeve, and I'll go ahead and cut out the band on my fabric as well. Okay, so now I've also gone ahead to cut out the body part on my fabric. So let me just explain to you how I added the stitching allowance. So on the neck I added about ½ inch, on the shoulder ½ inch. I did not add any allowance to the armhole. On the side I added 1½ inch. This is because I'm going to be adding a lining to the back pattern, so you need enough stitching allowance on the side, and also for you to be able to adjust your blouse later in case you become a little bit bigger. Okay, so you just need to have more allowances on the side. And for the front pieces I added 1½ inch to the sides as well, and every other part I just added ½ inch. Okay, ½ inch around every other part except from the side that has 1½ inch. So yeah, these are all the patterns we are going to be using to make this blouse. I'll go ahead and cut out the fabric for the band as well. You'll be needing a zipper. So this is the zipper I'm going to be using, and of course you will be needing your lining because you need to line the body part of this. So in my next tutorial we are going to be sewing this. So thank you so much for watching.